a 3-time NBA champ, a 2-time Olympic gold medalist, one of only 5 players to win at least 3 NBA championships and 2 Olympic gold medals, a Defensive Player of the Year, a 4-time All-Defensive First-Teamer, a National Player of the Year, a Big Ten Player of the Year at Michigan State. He was the 35th pick overall back in 2012. Golden State's got the best record in the NBA. We are joined by Draymond Green. Draymond, it's good to have you back. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thanks for having me again, Jim.
Dude, it's so good to have you, Draymond. Appreciate you. In fact, let me rephrase the question. Since it's been a minute or two since you and I have spoken, you've got the best record in the NBA right now. The team is playing really, really high-level ball. I know you got a little ding last night. Overall, how you doing? How is your life? How are things?
Life is great. I definitely got a little ding last night. Pretty short today, but in the grand scheme of things, small thing to a giant. But life's great. My family's amazing. The season's going great. You know, I always say winning cures all. Winning is fun. And, you know, so things are going great. I can't complain.
Dude, I love that response. It's a small thing to a giant. Draymond Green joining us. You know, winning does cure a lot of things. You were so used to winning, and then the team goes through a stretch over the past couple of years where you weren't winning nearly as much as you had in the past. What was that time like, and then how does it feel to be playing elite ball once again?
That time sucked. I had never lost like that in my life. So not only was it a big change from what we had been doing the previous 5 years before that, but I just had never really experienced losing like that in my life. So it was really tough, and it wasn't fun. You know, you go from walking into an arena every night knowing like, if we want to win this game, we'll win the game. You know, and then you go. It's the total opposite end of the spectrum of walking into an arena every night, kind of knowing that you're probably going to lose that game. It was brutal. I always say, people say losing is hard. Like, the feeling of losing sucks, but actually losing is easy. And so it was hard to deal with, but I prefer winning any day and the stress that comes with that and everything that you put into the game to win.
Draymond Green is joining us. What a great response that is. You know, I'm looking at your credentials. I read them off the top, and as good as they are, and again, we're talking about you being Defensive Player of the Year in 16-17, third in the Defensive Player of the Year voting last season, despite being recognized as one of the better defensive players in the game year in and year out, I'm still not sure the average fan really appreciates the work you do on that end of the floor at your size. Draymond, guys who go 6'6" are not supposed to dominate on that end of the floor. How have you been able to do that for as long as you have, and what's your mindset and approach on that side of the court?
Well, Jim, I think the average fan also don't understand what they're looking at on that side of the floor. You know, we can all look at the ball go into the hoop and know, oh, man, that guy is scoring. But the reality is, I see a lot of times guys score the basketball and it doesn't affect winning. It doesn't really impact their team in a positive way. But yet, if people see you scoring the basketball, they're like, oh, man, that guy's good. As far as the defensive side of the ball goes, most people try to quantify it by steals or blocks. And you can't quantify defense by steals or blocks either, because there's so much more that goes into the defensive side of the ball. And so for me, I know a lot of fans don't appreciate it, and you know, I don't get off on them appreciating it, so I'm fine. I don't, you know, judge myself based on what they think or what they see. I judge myself based on how I feel, what I see, what I know I can do better, which I'm pretty sure is a way tougher scale than most people would judge on. So I'm fine with that. As far as holding down the floor at 6'6", I think one thing for me, I've seen over the course of the years in this league, guys or teams try to play guys because they're similar in height at the 5, you know, 6'6", 6'7" guy at the 5. And the reality is you have to understand what it is to be a big man in order to truly do that. And for me, although I've always kind of played point guard growing up, on offense, I always had to hold the middle down on defense my entire life. And so I learned how to play defense like a big man learns how to protect the paint. And I think that helps me. I think that helps us when we are small. And I think that's what's been the key to my success when on the defensive side of the ball and playing against guys that are much bigger than me, usually by 5, 6, 7 inches, usually outweighed by 30, 40, 50 pounds. I think that's what's benefited me.
Talking to Draymond Green, to that point, Draymond, when you say that other teams look at you and they look at a guy who goes 6'6" and they try and play him in that 5 because they want to have a similar success or a similar result, I think it's important to remind everybody, every single team passed on you in the draft, and then it was not that long thereafter that every single team was looking for the next Draymond. What does that mean to you? And is there another guy like you? Is there anybody playing who reminds you of you?
You know what, Jim? I think for me personally, my goal when I came into the league, I was considered a tweener. And when you were considered a tweener, it was like a death sentence. This guy's a tweener. He doesn't really have a position. That's what it was when I came into the league 10 years ago. My goal was to make the word tweener extinct, because the way people looked at it, especially the scouts, was a tweener is a negative thing. The way I looked at it as a player was, you're calling me a tweener because I can do a bunch of things. And, you can't really say I'm a 3. You can't really say I'm a 4 because I can do some of all of that. And yet it was looked at negatively. So my goal was to make that word extinct and try to create another path for guys to the NBA. I think I've helped accomplish that. Some other guys that I think are a lot like me, a little bigger than me in size, but one guy I really respect his game, and it resembles mine now. The offense runs through him more. He scores a bit more for his team. It's Bam Adebayo. Not quite your typical center size as far as what we've grown to know centers to be. So would be considered a little undersized, yet can switch and guard anyone on the perimeter, can guard any post-up guy, block shots, get steals, run the floor, can handle the ball, can pass the ball. So that's a guy who I look at that would be considered undersized for his position, but still causes and wreaks a lot of havoc.
Draymond Green joining us. God, how weird is that, dude, that you just said, I'm 10 years in. I'm telling you, if you really don't know where your feet are, you could lose 10 years. I'm thinking about the fact that you and I have been talking all the way back to your time at Michigan State. Oh, and speaking of that, knowing that, I got to ask you, now, what was your reaction to the college football playoff ranking that had Michigan ahead of Michigan State, despite the Spartans winning head-to-head?
I think when you look at certain things like that, They want attention, so how can we cause a little controversy to get you to talk about this ranking a little bit more than you possibly would? And one way to do that is to put a team that just lost in a head-to-head matchup a week prior ahead of another team that just went on the road and lost a tough road game. The way I look at it is we have a golden opportunity. We still have Penn State coming into our house. We still have to go to Ohio State, and we still, we take care of business in those games. We still got the Big Ten championship, and we'll be right back in the top 4. We handle business. I have no doubt in my mind that the young fellas will handle business and get back there, but I thought it was utterly ridiculous that the committee decided to go with Michigan over Michigan State a week after they just beat them head up.
Draymond
and by
Green.
the way,
yeah.
Michigan played as good as they possibly could play and lost that game. So I didn't really understand the merit behind it.
I don't think anybody does. Draymond Green joining us for another moment or so. Draymond, Steph obviously is doing Steph-like things and playing at such a high level right now. I'm curious, what are your expectations for Klay when he comes back and gets into a rhythm once again? How do you think it's going to look when he comes back, and how's that going to feel?
Yeah, Steph is otherworldly, man. He's incredible. As far as Klay coming back, I want to keep my expectations for Klay coming back extremely low. So as far as Klay coming back, what I expect from Klay is simply to cause and put a lot of fear into opposing teams' hearts. When you got Klay Thompson on the floor, the spacing that he brings to the floor, because he's lights out, opens the floor up for all of us. But to try to put some expectations on a guy coming back from an ACL injury, that was followed by an Achilles injury, I think is wrong. I think we all see that this team has potential to possibly make a run, and we all want Klay back and just expect him to come back as Klay Thompson as if he just didn't have two possibly career-ending injuries. And so for me, as his teammate, as his brother, as a leader of this team, my expectations are extremely low, and not because I don't respect Klay Thompson and know what he brings to the table, but more so because I know everybody's expecting and going to put the pressure on Klay Thompson to be the Klay Thompson of old right away. And I personally don't think that's physically possible. And even if it is possible, and the one guy that can do that, and as tough as nails is Klay, then let him just do that on his own terms and not us forcing him and wanting him to be something that he may not be able to be right away and missing the last 2.5 years of playing basketball.
Draymond Green, my guest. Hey, listen, I don't want to get greedy, but just a quick follow, if you don't mind. When you mentioned that Steph is just like otherworldly at this point. I mean, you know this guy. You've lived with this guy. You've run with this guy. You've won world championships with this guy. And even to hear you say it right now, to call him otherworldly, like, what's it like to run with him now and see what he's doing now?
I think for me, to see what he's doing now is even more impressive than what he's doing before. And here's why I'll say that. Here's why I will say that. Number one, the defenses that he faces on a nightly basis are totally different than what they were before. He's always seen blitzes and traps. But, like, at this point, teams are blitzing him at half court because he shoots the ball from so far out. You know, and so I don't think there's anyone in the NBA, and I love to see a stat that commands a double team as much as he do. You know, you have great scorers in the NBA. They don't get double teamed just coming into a game. Now, you get guys that get hot. Anthony Edwards, for instance, last night, who is going to be an incredible player in this league. He got it going. We started trapping him, right? Steph Curry comes into the game facing a trap on his very first pick and roll. And so I just think what he does to defenses and the way they're covering him, and yet he's still able to produce the way he's producing is incredible. I think with Steph, he's 33 years old now. He'll be 34 in 4 months. To still be playing at this level and seems to be getting better is insane. And I think for me, most importantly, there's two things. Well, there's one thing, but it kind of combines two. He's gotten so strong. And just watching the work that he puts in on his body each and every day has been impressive. And with that added strength, has become a much better offensive player, but more importantly, has become a much better defensive player. You're not moving him off his spot. He's not a liability on the defensive side of the ball. Guys try to go at him. He's getting stops. He's getting steals, and they're not steals playing in the passing lane. They're steals a guy trying to go at him. He takes the bump. The guy gets stood up. He knocks the ball away. You know, and so I think for me, as great as he is offensively, and as much better as he's gotten offensively, it's what he's doing on the defensive end that no one's talking about that I think is even more impressive than what he's doing on the offensive end.
I think what I just heard over the last 50 minutes or so is just incredible. Like, incredible stuff. You and I have done this a lot over the years, Draymond. You have never been better than today, and you are always good. I want to reiterate, too, Steph's on record as saying that you are, quote, the smartest basketball player I have ever played with. He said that about you. Draymond, I did not mean to keep you so long, but dude, you were rolling, big man. I had to stay out of your way. I appreciate you. It is so great to have you back on the show, Draymond, and really good to talk to you, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jim. It's always a pleasure and an honor, my friend.
You too. A pleasure and an honor. Appreciate you very much, Draymond. That is great. That is such good stuff. Such good stuff. So pleased with that. My thanks to Draymond for making time for us. And he did get dinged last night. You know, a lot of times if something happens like that in a game and the interview is booked prior to that, then interviews get unbooked, and I always understand that. That's not what happened, man. He was bright and early and just spitting knowledge. What an amazing interview that was.